Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a really foundational text. We are tackling a piece of political philosophy written almost 500 years ago, asking, well, maybe the single most critical question in political theory. Why do we obey?
It's a huge question. Why do whole populations, bow to systems of power, systems that could, frankly, crumble the moment people just stopped cooperating?
Exactly. And that's where this brilliant thinker comes in. Étienne de La Boétie, a name maybe not everyone knows, but he was one of the earliest, and I'd argue, most insightful political dissidents out there.
Right, and just for everyone listening, the French is closer to La Boétie. His work, The Discourse of Voluntary Servitude, sometimes called The Politics of Obedience, it feels startlingly relevant today.
Okay, so give us the background. La Boétie, born 1530.
He was this incredibly bright Renaissance legal scholar in France, 1530 to 1563. Most people know him as Montaigne's closest friend.
And he wrote this incredibly radical piece when? As a student?
Yeah, around 1552 or 53, so he's maybe 22, which is just wild considering the time. France in the 1500s, obedience to the king was practically seen as, God's will.
So for him to question the very basis of obedience itself, that was huge.
Absolutely. And it wasn't like a dry legal argument. It was abstract, philosophical, drawing on ancient Greece and Rome to ask these huge questions about liberty, equality, stuff that really pops up big time in the 18th century.
And his starting point is just beautiful. Liberty is natural.
Right. He says nature, reason, even animal instincts show us this. Animals fight captivity. They cry out for liberty, he says. So if freedom is natural, submitting must be, well, voluntary, unnatural.
He doesn't really care how a tyrant gets power, does he? Election, conquest, inheritance.
Nope. He lumps them all together. Once they're in charge, they all rule the same way. The elected ones act like they're taming cattle.
The conquerors treat people like, they're prey.
Exactly. And the ones who inherit the throne, they treat subjects like natural slaves, just property passed down. It's all oppression, packaged differently.
Which leads to his solution, which is kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. And you can see why thinkers focused on nonviolence or anarchy loved this later. If tyranny is built entirely on our consent,
then you just take away the consent.
Bingo. Mass withdrawal. Simple as that.
But hang on. If people are so conditioned, so used to being ruled, maybe even scared, how can they just decide to be free? Isn't that a bit idealistic? Don't they need weapons, an army?
See, that's the beauty of his logic. He says, quote, obviously there is no need of fighting to overcome this single tyrant, for he is automatically defeated if the country refuses consent to its own enslavement.
So you don't attack the giant statue.
You just pull away the pedestal it's standing on. Stop propping it up.
It's a call for inaction almost. Stop paying taxes, stop following orders. If people are simply not obeyed, the tyrant becomes undone and as nothing.
But then, okay, the obvious question comes up. If it's that simple, if freedom is just a matter of willing it, why doesn't it happen all the time? Why are people still subservient?
Right, which must be why he then dives into why people consent, the mechanisms behind it all.
Exactly. He outlines these, let's call them pillars, of voluntary servitude, the psychological and cultural supports.
Okay, but let's break those down. What's the first one?
First is perhaps the most insidious because it's so quiet, the force of habit and custom.
Just getting used to it.
Pretty much. Once a tyranny is established, maybe through conquest, maybe deception, maybe a crisis, people born under it, raised in it, they just accept it.
They don't know anything different.
Exactly. He says they're content because they're unaware of any other state or right. They think the condition they were born into is just natural, normal.
So it's not active support necessarily. It's inertia. Like, this is just how things are.
Precisely. La Boétie believed this habituation, this getting used to being ruled, is maybe the strongest force shaping us. Stronger even than our natural instinct for freedom.
He has some great analogies for this. The dogs of Lycurgus.
Yeah, the story goes, Lycurgus trained two dogs from the same litter differently. One learned to hunt hares, the other just to eat soup from a bowl. When shown both, they went to what they were trained for. Habit over nature.
We become creatures of habit, even in servitude.
Or like King Mithridates, who supposedly trained himself to tolerate poison by taking tiny amounts, gradually increasing the dose.
We learn to swallow the venom of servitude, as La Boétie puts it, and eventually it doesn't even taste bitter.
It just tastes like life.
And if you think about that today,
yeah,
wow, the power of the default, isn't it? The path of least resistance.
Totally. The convenience culture. If the system asks for a little bit of your data here, a little bit of your autonomy there.
But makes life easier, smoother, frictionless delivery, personalized everything.
You get used to it. The erosion happens slowly, habitually. The chains aren't iron anymore. They're made of convenience, algorithms, habit.
Which leads perfectly into the second mechanism he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
This one feels very relevant.
Spectacle and deception. This is where the rulers actively work to manufacture consent. It's not just passive habit, it's engineered.
The opiates, he calls them.
That's the word. He lists things like plays, farces, spectacles, gladiators, strange beasts, medals, pictures, and other such opiates.
Distractions, entertainment.
Exactly. He said these were the bait toward slavery, the price of their liberty, the classic bread and circuses.
Give the people food and entertainment, and they won't notice what's really happening. He talks about the Roman emperors.
Yeah, handing out grain, wine, a bit of money.
Yeah.
And the people would cheer, praise the emperor.
Failing to realize, as La Boétie points out, that they were just getting back a tiny piece of what was already theirs, what had been taken from them.
They were being bribed with their own stuff.
And the detail about Nero is just jaw-dropping.
Isn't it? He says when Nero, this monstrous tyrant, died, the supposedly noble Roman people were sad. They mourned him.
Why?
Because they remembered the games, the festivals, the spectacle. Their loyalty, their affection was bought with entertainment.
So the memory of the fun times completely wiped out the reality of his tyranny. That is chilling.
It really is. It suggests that spectacle can be more powerful than truth, than lived experience even.
And today, the spectacle isn't necessarily gladiators in the Colosseum.
No, but it's the endless scroll, right? The 24/7 news cycle as entertainment, the reality TV politics, the constant stream of digital distractions.
Mixed with consumerism, the next shiny object.
It keeps us occupied, looking elsewhere. And rulers still use mystification, too. Fancy titles, ceremonies, pretending to be guardians of liberty while acting tyrannically, wrapping power in symbols and mystery to make it seem sacred, untouchable.
Like the Assyrian kings or Egyptian pharaohs he mentions, making themselves seem more than human.
It's all part of the performance of power, political theater. Still works.
Then the third pillar is maybe the most obvious one, fear and constraint.
Right, the classic tool. He admits obedience often starts with force, or the threat of it. But the twist is the tyrant lives in constant fear, too. Fear of the people they oppress, who rightly hate them.
That's a good point. But fear still works, even subtly.
Oh, definitely. Think about today. Mass surveillance, even if it's not always obvious, the security state justifying more control, this constant low-level anxiety about threats. It keeps people compliant. You don't need soldiers on every street corner if people feel watched or scared.
Okay, so that leaves the fourth pillar, the one he called the mainspring.
Yes, the mainspring and the secret of domination. Networks of privilege and complicity. This is the system's engine.
How does that work?
It's basically a pyramid scheme of corruption and reward. It starts small, maybe 5 or 6 key advisors get the biggest slice of the pie.
The inner circle.
Right. They then control, say, 600 lower officials who get their cut, and those 600 control 6,000 more.
And it keeps going down until you have millions clinging to the tyrant by this cord, as he puts it.
Exactly. These people aren't necessarily fooled by the propaganda. They're the ones who benefit from the system. They get his share of the loot, power over others, status. They're the wicked dregs corrupted by greed or ambition.
They're bought off, essentially.
They're bought off. They have a stake in maintaining the tyranny because it serves their interests. It's like today, maybe it's not direct state bribes, but think about corporate perks, access, consumer benefits, aligning yourself with power structures because it feels like personal advancement. Obedience feels like success.
But he points out a really dark irony for these privileged few, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. They're never safe. He gives examples from Rome, Seneca, Burrus, Nero's own mother, Agrita, his wife, Copia, all incredibly powerful insiders, all eventually destroyed by the very tyrants they serve.
Their position is totally precarious.
Utterly. Their wealth, their lives can be snatched away instantly. He argues their servitude is actually worse than the poor farmer they look down on. They live in constant anxiety, unable to be truly happy, always fearing the fall. Privilege bought through tyranny is just a gilded cage.
So it sounds pretty bleak. Habit, spectacle, a hierarchy of complicity. Is there any hope in his view?
There is. Despite all this, La Boétie believes not everyone is fooled. Not everyone succumbs.
Okay.
He says there's always a perceptive few, an elite, maybe not by birth, but by mind, people who feel the weight of the yoke and cannot restrain themselves from attempting to shake it off.
Who are these people?
People with clear minds, far-sighted, often educated through study and learning, people who understand liberty so deeply that even if it had vanished from the earth, they would invent it.
Ah, so this is why tyrants fear education.
Absolutely. Because educated thinking people see through the charade. They remember the past, they value freedom, and they represent a constant danger to the habits of obedience.
So if these aware people exist,
Yeah.
and if tyranny ultimately rests on consent, what's the solution? How do you break the cycle?
This is where La Boétie's argument comes full circle, leading to his radical strategy. Or maybe non-strategy.
Non-strategy.
It flows directly from his core idea. If tyranny rests on consent, then to defeat it, you just withdraw that consent.
You don't need violence, no fighting.
He says no bloodshed required. The tyrant can be defeated merely by willing to be free.
Decide not to obey.
Essentially, yes, stop cooperating. Stop providing the tools of your own oppression. Stop giving your money, your labor, your compliance.
Refuse to serve.
Exactly, and this leads to that incredibly famous metaphor he uses.
The Colossus.
Yes. He says, resolve to serve no more, and you are at once freed. I do not ask that you place hands upon the tyrant to topple him over, but simply that you support him no longer. Then you will behold him, like a great Colossus whose pedestal has been pulled away, fall of his own weight, and break into pieces.
Wow. That's incredibly powerful as an image. The power just evaporates because its base is gone.
The base is the people's support. Pull that away and the whole thing collapses.
Let's be real. Is that actually practical? Especially now, in the 21st century.
That's the big question, isn't it?
I mean, back in 1552, maybe withdrawing support was more direct. But today, with digital surveillance, complex economic systems, state power, can you really just resolve to serve no more? Isn't that a naive?
You can sound naive, maybe, but I think La Boétie's real insight isn't necessarily about a specific tactic for revolution. It's deeper. It's about understanding the internal nature of servitude.
What do you mean?
He's showing us that the chains are often internal. They're made of habit, distraction, convenience, our own desires. So the withdrawal has to start internally too, with awareness, with seeing clearly.
Seeing how you participate.
Yes. Refusing the manipulation. It's a philosophy of clear sight first, then maybe action or non-action. He's arguing that the ultimate power switch happens in your own mind, when you realize your compliance is what fuels the machine.
So pulling it all together, La Boétie's message, nearly 500 years later, is that servitude is often a choice, an internal state.
Yes, often fostered by these forces, habit, spectacle, seeking perks within the system. The real battle isn't always external, it's internal, refusing consent in your own mind.
Freedom begins with awareness.
Freedom begins when you recognize you're holding the chain yourself.
That brings us right back to today, and maybe a final thought for everyone listening. La Boétie showed how we can be accomplices in our own submission. So if we're living now in this age of, surveillance capitalism, algorithmic nudges, digital control, if the greatest power really is just ceasing to feed that system, what would that actually look like?
What would your life look like if you truly practiced that withdrawal of consent today?